as a startup, this, on a whole, this way of thinking and way of operating gives you a huge advantage over bigger organizations with much, much more funding, right? So going into this time of uncertainty, just feel secure in knowing that you do have that advantage to move quickly. Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of the Marketing for Startups podcast. It's a looming recession, right? I mean, I think that there's a big sentiment, especially among founders that are trying to fundraise right now, that this is the absolute worst time to be fundraising. And the reason is because there's this looming recession. So what I want to talk to you about today is a little bit on how we can recession proof our business from the lens of marketing. Like, there are a couple things that we can do that sort of sets us up for having a bit of a safety net. And there's going to be only three things to focus on. And they're going to be partially tactical, but also a little bit more cerebral, a little bit more of a mindset shift. Because I think when we're going into situations where there are outside factors that absolutely will affect our business and our customers, we think that we don't have any control. But I think we can see after COVID, there were tons and tons of businesses that were able to shift and able to succeed and actually thrive in COVID, but they needed to adopt this one mindset shift, which is what we're going to talk about first. But before we get into that, I want to say, if you enjoy this podcast, if you love the Marketing for Stars podcast, it would mean so much to me if you would screenshot this episode and share it on social, or just simply send a link to an entrepreneurial friend that could also benefit from all of the stuff we talk about here on the Marketing for Stars podcast about growing your startup, growing your business, marketing, sales, data, all of that good stuff, leadership, strategy. So yeah, that would mean so much to me. Okay, so let's get into it. How do we really recession proof our business? So let's talk about the first idea, which is a mindset shift. And it's really about getting out of the victim mentality. So as I just mentioned, of course, there are going to be outside factors that affect your business, affect your customers. But as a startup, one of the mindsets you need to adopt as an entrepreneur is the idea to be nimble, to be curious, right? To move fast, to pivot. So we saw so many great businesses pivot during COVID and be able to sort of reimagine what their business was. There were like tons of online businesses launched out of physical services that saw really great success. A lot of folks created digital courses, all of that stuff. And the businesses that were able to sort of stay ahead of the curve and sort of move quickly to change how they served their customers really were the ones that succeeded. And so obviously we don't know what the future holds, and we don't know what practically this potential economic downturn is really going to do for our specific business. But there are a few things we can do right now, which is arm ourselves with knowledge, arm ourselves with ideas on different ways that we can serve our clients, or different products that we can create that's going to give us a little bit of diversity in our revenue streams. And in doing this, it's going to, of course, pad a little bit the risk that we're taking on as we move into this period of economic downturn. And so what you could do now is, of course, learning. But I also want to stress that a lot of businesses that really did find success through the pandemic were ones that looked to other industries for ideas. So you don't want to be left behind doing what everyone else is doing if we find that this economic downturn is beginning to really affect our businesses, right? And so get curious, start exploring, start learning about what other businesses are doing in completely different verticals, right? Sometimes you can get some really creative and innovative ideas by just looking around at what other businesses are doing and sort of trying to imagine, how could I incorporate that idea or that philosophy or that way of delivery into my own business? It's this way of thinking that's going to keep you kind of ahead of the game. And again, with that mindset of being agile and nimble in the way that you operate, it's going to give you an advantage. And as a startup, this, on a whole, this way of thinking and way of operating gives you a huge advantage over bigger organizations with much, much more funding, right? Because for bigger organizations, as your business grows and your team grows and gets larger, what ends up happening is that the rate at which decisions are made or changes implemented becomes much, much slower. So going into this time of uncertainty, just feel secure in knowing that you do have that advantage to move quickly, right? And so when we're moving quickly, we want to make sure that we do it with intention and we have strategy, right? We don't want to just drop and stop a lot of different things. But if you do see your business changing, now is definitely the time to start testing things intentionally and iterating, improving on some different ideas and different ways of delivery. So the first thing I would say is be nimble, be agile, be curious, and start arming yourself with knowledge, right? Start getting creative on ways that you may be able to shift your service or the way that you deliver or the way that you interact with your customers or clients in advance of what may be to come, right? Get a head start on it now. The second thing, or I guess this is sort of related to what we really see. So whether or not we're in for, we're witnessing the biggest economic downturn of our lifetimes or not, we can already see a lot of changes happening in the big organizations. A lot of layoffs, a lot of rifts. And so it's been on the mind of many entrepreneurs of how can we really run our team as lean as possible? How can we really cut back on costs? So in this moment right now, a really great way to be preparing your business is to start really investing in technology. Now, this is an investment because the idea is when you're investing in technology that it's going to make business processes more efficient or even reduce costs by just not needing as much overhead. So if you've thought, I really could be upgrading my systems, there's a lot that I can be automating here, or I can kind of shift onto different platforms that's going to help me get better insights or better data so I can make better decisions. Now is absolutely the time to do it. It's again, a way of preparing for, any shifts or any changes you need to make in your business. You want to be ahead of the curve. And there's so many ways that you can invest in technology that's going to help you be more agile, nimble, as I said previously. And I would focus on making an actionable thing you can do is make a list of all of the systems that you can possibly implement of the activities that are executed for your business. So look at each team member, what they're doing, each department, et cetera, and say, what are some systems and processes we can put into place? And is there any software that we can use to help kind of make this smoother or make this more cost efficient, right? And this doesn't mean you have to get rid of the team that you have. It's simply saying, okay, how can we replace maybe some repeatable processes that I have, contractors, freelancers, employees, different personnel handling? And then maybe that individual could be shifted to do something that's going to help the business in a different way, right? Something that's perhaps going to produce a greater ROI. I think oftentimes we have really smart, creative folks working with us, but they're kind of stuck doing these remedial tasks, and a lot of which probably could be outsourced to technology. And then we can use those folks for a little bit more high-level thinking stuff, right? Or a little bit more specific tasks that we can't get technology to help with. So I would really suggest taking a look at your tech stack, taking a look at your processes, all that stuff, and saying, is there any upgrade that I can make? And believe me, now is the time you're going to want to do it, because if you have those things in place at the time of a real economic downturn, you're going to already be ahead of the curve, because you're going to have your team and your costs leaned out. And again, I would focus on also getting some technology, some software in place that's going to help you really aggregate the data that you do have in your business. So looking at all of the platforms, all of the softwares that you use. Is there any software that's available that will streamline several softwares that I have into one? And what would the cost benefit be for that? But also, in what ways can I streamline data from all of these different softwares? Because when you see things together side by side, it's much easier to make some conclusions from the numbers that you're seeing. And you're able to look at the business more as like in a more of a holistic way, or look at your marketing and sales processes as a holistic kind of flywheel. I teach a 24/7 marketing flywheel strategy on kind of how to build out this system that keeps your pipeline ever full with leads. But again, you need to sort of take that step back at the data so you can kind of see, is this marketing flywheel, or is my sales and marketing processes, are they working or not? What can be improved? What conversion rates do we have to focus on? So again, if you don't have good data, now would be the time to invest in getting that data aggregated and organized. And there's great things that you can look into. There's softwares like DataBox. I'll put in the show notes, something like DataBox, which really enables you. It's just basically an API that can aggregate reports and data from all the different softwares that you use. And there's a free version of that. So it doesn't have to be a big investment. It could even just be an investment of your time to kind of research and make those decisions on what those switches are. Because if you're a small business, right, startup, small business, small team, you may not need the enterprise level or the professional level of these softwares. And a lot of them have a light version, which are maybe free or very inexpensive. And then the last piece of advice I will leave you with as a way to prepare for this economic downturn is think about diversifying your customer base. So in marketing terms, I like to say, how could we diversify our lead generation channels? So if you're in the stage where you kind of have one pipeline that's working for you, right? Maybe you're doing ads on a specific platform and they're converting in kind of a predictable way. And you're sort of like, okay, you're kind of happy with the results that you're getting for your marketing and sales channels. This would be a moment where I would say, could be a really good idea to start diversifying either the customers that you are targeting on that specific channel. So if there's another segment of customer that you've been thinking, oh, I could be serving that different customer, right? Important that you have your first original customer working well and converting well and have some predictability before you go into any other customer bases. But again, if you have sort of another kind of persona you could be serving, it could be just a way as diversifying, again, the types of customers that you serves a little bit as that security blanket to say, okay, well, if I have various customer bases I'm tapping into, if one of them dries up, right, because of this recession, well, maybe we'll have some diversity there and we won't be sort of putting all of our eggs in one basket. Now, alternatively, I like to look at this at lead generation sources as well. So let's say it doesn't make sense for you to go into a different customer base. You could also be looking at, all right, do you have one lead generation source that's working well for you? Maybe you have great leads coming through partnerships, and that's really all you focus on, and you haven't began to advertise. Perhaps it's the other way around. You're advertising and you haven't started partnerships. Or maybe you're advertising, but just on one platform. I would suggest opening up other advertising channels or opening up different partnership channels. Just kind of spreading your wings a little bit on the channels by which those leads come into your business. Because again, And I remember very vividly seeing this in 2021 with Facebook ads. There's a lot of things can be very unpredictable when you're doing digital marketing, right? And especially if you're running ads or, even with partners. I mean, things can be very unpredictable, right? There could be algorithm changes. Certain ad channels could just dry up. Certain partners could just not produce for you anymore, or they could be going through their own issues with this economic downturn and not produce for you anymore. So the best thing you could do is diversify, right? And have a little bit of that insurance that even if one of those channels stop producing as well as others, then you have some other options, right? The last thing you want to do is really just be putting all of your eggs in one basket in general in your business, right? And so if you're having a hard time finding stability within one customer base or one marketing channel, then I would really take this time before you start spreading your wings to kind of double down and ask why. Why is this not working? Can we get this one channel kind of working so we do have the bandwidth to kind of start spreading and diversifying either that customer base or that channel? But you want to make that decision, that call based on what's going to be easiest for you, what's going to be the most cost effective, right? So those are my 3 tips, right? Kind of diversifying that lead gen channel or that customer base, investing in technology, but most importantly, really arming yourself with knowledge, getting curious, and being ready to be agile and nimble, to change course, change strategy, or get more creative when needed if we do find that things are changing dramatically in our business and with our customers. So I do hope just lots of prosperity for everyone listening, and that this episode will not even be applicable because we're just going to continue with great prosperity through the next, foreseeable future. But the reality is, regardless of a recession coming or not, these are really good kind of ideas to consider in order to put a little bit more of a security blanket around your business, and to know that no matter what the season, what happens with the economic weather, that you will succeed and you will be strong. So that is the episode for today. You can go to the show notes and get the links that I mentioned to DataBox. There is an affiliate link there too with some special bonuses, like special benefits for those that click through the link, or you can just Google DataBox. And if you have any questions, or if you're feeling some real fear around this economic downturn, I can do more episodes on this specific topic as it relates to marketing and even sales. So just shoot me an email. And until next week, I will, keep going. You don't have to go fast. You just have to keep going. So take these ideas and see where they take you. And I'll see you back here next week for the Marketing for Startups podcast.